we will start. We will be starting. Oh, Diana, that's not a joke. I know. Diana King, I give the word to you.
Yeah, guys, I'm really glad to see all of you here and amazing faces and a lot of people I know in person, and I'm really glad that you joined. I was really stressed these few days, maybe even for a week, but I'm glad that you joined to our webinar, Global Insights and Emotional Intelligence for Teams and Communities. And Diana will tell more about everything, and I want to tell thank you to Max Simichuk and to Saya Simichuk because they helped me to organize everything, and also to our amazing speakers, Stuart and Ola. They are very interesting people, but Diana will tell more. And let me tell few sentences about Diana. She is an amazing people person, global shaper of Kyiv Hub and professional community manager. And she will moderate this session much better than me because I'm really nervous and I will let new people to our webinar. So just enjoy, and sorry for everything that could happen and didn't happen. And let's talk after our session.
Thank you so much, Diana. So Diana did most of the organization of this event, and now she's too nervous to speak, and she even turned off her camera. Come on, Diana. Thank you so much for putting this all together, and thank you everyone for joining. That includes speakers and attendees. So I would like to first talk a bit about Global Shapers. I'll do a small intro, and I will share my screen and just show you our website. No, click my notes. So Global Shapers, has anyone heard of Global Shapers? And now, yay, hands up, everyone knows about Global Shapers. I believe there's a bunch of Global Shapers here in the call, which is great. So Global Shapers Community is a youth initiative. It is international, and it was initiated by the World Economic Forum like 10, 12 years ago. Ola, you can correct me. So what Global Shapers do, they organize local social projects thinking globally, of course. Right now, there's over 400 hubs. These are not physical hubs. Well, some of them are, but this means a group of young leaders in their cities. Hubs are located in different cities. And there's around 10,000 shapers right now in the world. So basically, being a global shaper allows you to have access to the world agenda and the voice of the youth. So global shapers are leaders of volunteer movements, are leaders of businesses, in politics, in media, in art, from different industries in different cities around the world. Global shapers are often speakers at the World Economic Forum in Davos, now maybe online, we'll see. And like, important thing is that the social projects that global shapers organize locally have impact and then come together. So global shapers from around the world would discuss the main focuses for the year or for the upcoming years, and then focus the projects locally to change the world together. Now, the Kyiv Hub has been formed around 6 years ago, and right now we're around 30 shapers in our hub. And again, these are leaders from social initiatives and volunteering projects, from the politics, from owners of startups or tech companies, and not only tech companies, but other businesses too. And in the 6 years, Global Shapers Kyiv Hub have organized a bunch of local projects. For example, this one that we're in right now is called Global Insights. This is a series of events. We try to organize a global insight once a month. It used to be offline. We would gather like 100 people together in one room. Right now, again, as we all see, we're online, which is amazing because now we can do international. The topics that we cover in Global Insights are topics that are actual for youth like us. So we started with topics such as networking and why it's important, or how to switch your career path, how to manage your personal finance, how to manage finance of your small business. And now we're moving to the emotional intelligence that we'll be talking about today. Um, One more thing that I want to say about global shapers is we have people from around the world here. Anyone can become a global shaper if you're from 18 to 28, 27 years old. You can go to the globalshapers.org website and apply to be a shaper in the hub of the city that you're in. Then if you travel, you can meet global shapers from around the world. Ola, would you like to add anything about global shapers?
No, I think it's like pretty enough about the Global Shapers community in general. And I really appreciate if people will visit the site, especially the website of Kyiv Hub, just to check the information who is whom. I mean, like we are the hosts of this event. Apply to join the community to be this change we are doing together.
Yes, please join us. Thank you. I will stop sharing. Yes. So today we will be talking about emotional intelligence. Recently, I've been talking with a couple of friends of mine, and we're saying how everything is getting automated. And my opinion, my personal opinion, is you can automate anything but understanding and feeling people, because it's quite difficult for me to imagine how you can automate feelings. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll speak to our experts here. Um, so, one more organizational thing. We were supposed to be joined by one more speaker, Albina Krasnodemska. Unfortunately, for personal reasons, she could not join us today, but still, we will be covering all of the topics that we discussed. All right, so our agenda today will be, we will start with Olha Stoliarchuk. She will speak to us about emotional intelligence, what it is, what's the difference between emotional intelligence and other intelligence, and how to measure it, how to develop it, and how to use it with teams. And then we'll have 5 minutes for questions to Ola. Then we'll have Stuart cover the topic of emotional intelligence and how to use it with remote teams and communities, and also how to use the skill as an actual skill in work and monetize it, if I could say so. And then we'll have 5 minutes for questions to Stuart, and then we'll open a discussion for 20 minutes for everyone. So anyone could join and voice their opinions. And as I said before, I hope we will have a fight of opinions. Maybe not, we'll see. Okay, so Ola, you will be speaking with us now. Ola is a co-founder of Israeli-Ukrainian Alliance. It's an international company that is focusing on enhancing social, business, and investment relations between Israel and Ukraine. Before that, Ola covered the legal questions in a bunch of big international companies. She can speak about that if she wants to. She is also a member of ELSA Vienna, the Law Clinic of Naukma, and charity organization The Wheel of the Good Deed. And she is, of course, a global shaper. And this year she was elected to be Global Shapers Community Champion for 2020-2021. Ola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank to everyone joining this topic today. And I would like to thank you very much to Kyiv Hub for organizing such events, because I do believe that in our new reality, we'll have a lot of questions arising, like how to act, what will be the next future, how everything is changing, and how to be vivid in this situation. So I think the more question rising and the more topic will be covered, like in this event, it will be even better to develop yourself and just speaking. And also I would like to thank the organizer. Just you made everything brilliant. Starting from my side, I will just a little bit amend the agenda, that I would just like to tell about the emotional intelligent, like what is this? Just to give the overview to everyone, because I don't know, like the audience on which level of this question they are. And I would cover more the question how it's why it's important, in which spheres, and like what is all about. I will not speak enough about the how to measure this, I think it's like the question more maybe will be covered after the question, and I think it will be better to speak like in more details in practical ways, because my idea of this webinar is not just to give speech, it's just to maybe share the experience how we do this, and I would be glad if there will be a question for me. So basically, talking about the emotional intelligence, this is the ability of people to understand, to realize, to manage their feelings, to control, and also it's the ability to realize the emotions of other people. So basically, it's all emotions we feel, and this is the tool we have just to be integrated socially and to work with people. Sometimes emotional intelligence compared with IQ. So we have a lot of work done on this that is different, and it's more about the rational and emotional parts of our brain and our activity. Actually, if we will just, briefly talk who is people who have this emotional intelligence, who can handle, who control it. It's people. Okay, are you hearing me? I'm sorry. Yeah, because it's something interrupted. So basically, the people who has this level of emotional intelligence is people who really realize their feeling, who can control, who manage their feeling, who can understand that this is my, let's say, anger, and this is my understanding that of situation, is it bad, good, or something. Then afterwards, it's the social realization. What's this feeling give you to be in the social, how I interact with other people. And the last but not the least, it's the way how we can develop this feeling, how we can develop ourselves, how we can upgrade. It's how we control and measure our feeling, how we can overcome some of them, and how we can work on our gaps or any feelings that we miss. So basically, if we just covered what is this all about, come in our head. My general idea of what just said, that actually emotional intelligence, it's just the biggest tool we have, the biggest tool we can upgrade for our life, the biggest tool we have already have, but that we maybe not use so much. But this is the tool we can really put in all our work and all our things that we're doing. It depends on, not depend on is it personal or maybe work, or is it something connected with me or with other people. It's just something that we already have, we need to discover more, and we just need to manage this. That's like the idea of what is this emotional intelligence. And just speaking about like why it's important, I assure that there is no question like why, because we are working in the society, we work in the community, we all work in team, we still live in the community, so we need to handle all these things, and we need just to realize there's something more. Just telling about the spheres of our life where we can use emotional intelligence, or maybe where we can define or upgrade, or just realize that there is something happened in these spheres and we are not aware of this. So basically, let's call it like professional sphere of life, our life, which include school, universities, work environment, maybe business here. So there is no doubt that we work with people, and the result of our work has some kind of success. And just to achieve this level of certain level of success, you need just to realize what do you want from life, how do you manage your level of success, how do you manage your level of happiness, and also this is the way how you deal through the social obstacles happening on all of these stages. This is the idea how you will overcome the problems, how you will deal with certain obstacles and will move forward, and maybe not move forward. This is just the idea like why we need to think in this sphere about such really amazing tool as emotional intelligence. The second one, the idea of your physical state. So basically, I'm sure that a lot of people know that something that happens, if some events happen in your life, and if they're events related with stress, if you're not overcoming this stress, there is always a way how this stress, how it has an impact on your physical stability, or maybe it's also how it affects your immune system, how it affects, I know, your just overview of yourself in life. Third, but not the least, about mental health. So recently, this is the topic which is discovered more. The mental health means that the more you're overcoming this stress, the more you're easygoing, the more you're open to everything happening in your life, the more you're attracting the new possibilities, and more you're achieving something special in your life. And the last, it's about the relationship. All our action in society, they're related with the relationship, personal, work, and maybe some partnership. It's like kind of work, but not the last. And the more we are working in this direction, the more we're realizing what's our need, what's the need of our people, the more we can work on these issues, and the more we can upgrade the skills and make the environment more comfortable. Now just coming back to the community and work environment, that's something the practical I want to move in this direction, because I'm working now as the community champion for the region. So it's related with the Global Shapers community. Basically what I'm doing, and just shortly telling you, because maybe it will be interesting, especially if there are shapers in our small conversation today. Basically we have the team of 11 hubs, and each of these hubs is like individual NGO, we can say so, and they're doing their project, they have team inside. And basically my role is to work on the hub growth, to work on the engagement of shapers inside, how to make the impact. So this is a really amazing thing to do. I started working in the team. I was a lawyer for a long time. I was working, yeah, do you hear me?
Yes.
I think it's my emotional intelligence. Just turn off everything.
But you have 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just finishing the speech with why it's important, how to define, at least on the basics level, before we move forward just on some professional thing about the emotional intelligence. Just to finalize that this issue is really important on every stage of your life, in every sphere you are dealing with, starting from the working in a community, working with the team, starting prolonging with other issues like mental, physical health, and relationship, any kind of relationship you have. I hope we will speak more about the professional one in future. This is really important to work. This is really important to realize that such things exist. It's inside that we need to develop it. So I suggest, like from my side, there are 3 steps that can help you to achieve more powerful tool than you have already. It's the first one: just realize your emotion, work with this, realize your strong qualities, realize your strong feelings, realize that they exist in you, and work with them. The second one, try to understand what this emotion means. It's also about the good emotions and the bad emotions. Try to put forward your good emotion. Try sometimes to realize that there are still bad emotion and you need just to overcome them. And the final one is just try to manage this emotion. Try to realize that sometimes your emotion can harm your work, harm your relationship, harm anything you're doing right now and achieving, and try just to work with them. And by working, it means like there are lots of practices, how to work, how to put something more forward, more on. And I think that this topic that we started today, I hope that it will come to the end with some practical advices. And this is really interesting, especially to work in the virtual, because when we are meeting people and when we are working and living in the society, like offline society, it's easier sometimes to read the emotion, or maybe, as I said in the beginning, that emotional intelligence is also about reading other people's emotion. In virtual life, it's just changing a little bit. But I think that this is cool because this is the new reality, and we need to work and we need to manage how to deal it with further. Also, like a small one question, comment if I have some minutes. I also manage the VC chat room, which is the concentrated real blog. And basically the idea of this is kind of education, investment, or maybe startups, or maybe people who want to co-invest. And we talk a lot about how in this area, how in the area of VC funds, how people will work in future, how it will be the pitching, and how people will make partners, how they will attract investments. And we just came to the conclusion that this is something where we're urgent, because urgent to work, because all these things, they used to be offline mostly, because this is the time when you need to get people to know each other before you start the partnership, before you go to investment rounds and so on. And it was interesting, like how people from different spheres, but mostly in the topic of venture capital funds, how they deal with this new reality, and how they will work further, including working with the emotional intelligence, how they will get to know each other people, how they will work further. And it will be like, I think in the nearest future, it will be like a lot of questions raised, how, and I hope that will be a lot of answers how to do. Basically, this is like for the answering, I think this is a good start, like giving all the overview, what is this. And if there are any question by now, I would be really glad to answer, and I hope my internet will not break down again.
Thank you so much, Ola. Your 15 minutes are up right now, so good on timing. I will kick off the questions with a question from myself. So how do you understand your emotions? How do you define your emotions? What are the questions to ask yourself, or what are the actions to do to actually understand what emotion you're feeling and how to work with it?
Okay, so as I gave you in the beginning, it's really urgent to define the spheres in which you are trying to define your emotion. If I'm here as a speaker to talk more about the community and business, I would suggest that we will talk in this direction, that in business, I do a lot of mediation, I do a lot of business partnership. And this is the way where I connect with people and I work in the environment. Just asking about this idea, you just need to understand that there are specific rules how to feel about the people, how to get to know them, because for all of the meetings we have, for all the partnership we have, first of all, we just people come to people, and then they come to products and ideas, and still, and it's also about the credibility. But still, it's between people. So the question in this area is just you need to realize what are your strongest or best achievement you can provide, and also just try to learn how to work with people. You just need to realize what they want and think more on their way. What else was in the question? I forgot to just about how we will measure, or
how do you identify your emotion? But you kind of covered that. We have a question among the list of questions that our participants provided when registering. So one of them is name just a few signs of a highly developed emotional intelligence of your favorite historical personality. That's a question from Andriy Terhun. I don't know if you're in here, but we're talking about it. So maybe an example of like historic personality and with high emotional intelligence.
But the personality, I'm sorry, I didn't get, describe the personality, how they deal with the emotion, I'm sorry.
So the question was, provide please an example of a historic personality with high emotional intelligence, and what were their signs of high emotional intelligence?
Okay. This is like a really interesting question.
Maybe they're still alive.
Actually, I think I'm sure that a lot of leaders, they're having, I'm sure not about even the leaders, a lot of people, they're doing a great job in defining their emotional intelligence. And just to make it through, if we have the topic made by the Global Shapers Kyiv Hub, so I will tell about the Professor Schwab. It's the person who established our community, the huge one, not just the Global Shapers, but also with the World Economic Forum. So I had an honor to meet this person, and also had some kind of conversation about the emotional intelligence, but mostly how he inspired was this his idea to launch something like World Economic Forum, something like Global Shapers Community, how he really believe in this idea that people are working with people, and then by working on their emotional intelligence, how it's important for building the global agenda and how to connect people with each other. So basically, this is one of the pillar that should be put during combining the team. This is the pillar that help the team to be more productive, because the more you work on your emotions, the more you're just realizing what emotion should be inside, especially in the area of the conflict resolution. I mean, like between teams, between just the different mentality, between, this is something that you just need to manage all the time. And it's also about how this emotional intelligence, you just make the team grow, because if everyone is feeling comfort, if everyone is feeling the more in comfort zone, but also appreciated, how in team people are working on the issue of negative emotions, stress relief. It's something that's apply not only working in team, but it's also applying for works, for businesses, for business partners, how you overcome the stressful situation, how you deal, how you manage this stress. This is also a great example that there is a work need to be done, because sometimes I think in Ukraine it's also the case, the emotional stressful situation, it's not kind of the illness that let's say there is a way how to overcome. The people and business owners, they're not always paying attention, they're not always trying to, you know, to invest in this issue and to work with people and their feeling and their problems. But we surely understand that the more person is happy about his life, the more person is feeling comfortable, it means that it will be more, this person will achieve more results in work, and in the end this achievement will be global for the company. And taking back about the Schwab, he really believes that everything we are doing with emotions, and this emotion, it's our tool to go through. And he really appreciates like including this part in workshops. And I know that they have a lot of sessions on this as well right now, about it's more about the mental health. I think it's just they work with the proper move, right? It's just in the beginning. But I before I was going to this call, I had some conversation with Albina, which is unfortunately can't make this today. And we were talking about how they work in the team, like on the global level, how they work with this issue. And she said that they have specific trainings to make on this. It's basically sure, it's more with the stress relief and how they work in the teams on this issue, more on how to overcome than how to expand it. But for me, it was a really nice surprise that they put this like one of the pillars to develop in the team. And I hope that this is in few years, we also will see something like this regularly in the big companies in Ukraine as well.
Thank you, Ola. Unfortunately, our time for questions to you is
Okay.
up, but we have several really interesting questions in the chat. I suggest we leave it to the discussion later, because we would love to hear answers from all the speakers and all the participants too. We will now move to Stuart. Thank you so much, Ola. You can mute yourself, but please don't leave us and stay with us. We will now move to Stuart. Stuart is a journalist and an analyst, public speaker, author, startup founder, musician, and a digital nomad. And as I know, also is a developing photographer now. Yes, so Roger is well known for his speeches on mental health in tech industry, which I was lucky enough to attend once. I hope I will attend in more. So Stuart is a big advocate for mental health for people working in tech. He is also editor-in-chief at Badass Times, where he writes about the nomad life, and the co-founder of Badass Empire, that helps digital professions become badass at their business, marketing, and in life. He's also a managing editor at Great Daily, where he writes about marketing technology, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, and game tech. Thank you. Stuart, please, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes to start right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Diana. I don't even know what to do after that introduction. Everything else is going to be really flat. The introduction was the best part. So thank you so much for that. Listen, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, but not just emotional intelligence in terms of what it is, because of course, Olya covered that beautifully, but what it means to your business and why you should care about it. If we look at some of the history of some of the soft skills that are out there right now, and by soft skills, we're talking about things like emotional intelligence, things like creativity. If we look at the way that, say, for example, creativity has been valued by Western countries over the last several decades, what we've discovered is that because you can't put things like art and painting and dancing and music on a league table, so you can't determine whether a student is particularly good at, say, music because it's subjective. You can't determine whether, for example, your school is very high on the league tables because you can't measure the students when you measure their creativity. So what governments have successfully done over the years is they've actually defunded the arts. They've actually focused on things that they can measure, like, of course, mathematics and physics and chemistry and biology. And they've done that so that they can put everybody on a league table so they can score you. And creativity, as a result, we've forgotten how to teach people how to tap into their creative side because governments, because of educational establishments don't value it. And yet it's really weird because in 2020, the one thing that you are told is that you need to be more creative than the next person. You need to have a better personal brand. You have to have a more creative Instagram account. You've got to be more creative than anybody or else nobody's going to notice you. And yet we're not teaching creativity in school because it's seen as a soft skill and it's seen as something that's unmeasurable, therefore it's being defunded. And this is very similar to the way that we've treated emotional intelligence in business. And if we look at the Silicon Valley model of doing business, or Silicon Valley model of startups, what do? Well, you come up with an idea and then you go to your favorite VC and you say, hey, I've got an awesome idea. Can you give me some money? And they give you some money and then you go build it. Sometimes. That's not usually what happens. Unfortunately, over 95% of the time, those startups never make it past the first year. But the ones that do make it past the first year, they've built that business on other people's money. And they have, done that by coming up with an idea, just going out there and winging it. And, this is a very different business model to, say, the one that we used to operate under, which is where we would come up with an idea, we'd do some market research to see if it was a valid idea. We'd actually use our money or our friends and family money to get to at least a product. And then we would make sure that our product or service was profitable from the first month and we'd grow organically. Now, what's different about those two approaches is the amount of pressure that VCs will put you under in order to get their 10x return on their investment under the Silicon Valley model. And so they don't care about your emotional intelligence. They care about you working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week to get them their damn money back. So again, once you get out of the educational establishments where your creativity has been squandered and you've not been taught how to tap into that effectively, despite the fact that you need to be creative for your personal brand, you then go into the startup world and you're told to just work hard and get the job done. And again, your creativity and your emotional intelligence are sidelined because that's not how that VC is going to get their return on investment. And yet I would argue that emotional intelligence and all of the soft skills are actually much more important to the bottom line of your business. And if we're going to change the way that we fund companies, the way that we support founders and startup workers, if we're going to change the way that we do things so that actually instead of over 95% of startups fail in the first year, we actually end up with a higher percentage of startups doing well. It's actually going to be because of emotional intelligence. It's going to be because of creativity. It's going to be because of going back to some of the basics, like actually doing some damn market research to see if the problem you're trying to solve is a problem you should be trying to solve in the first place. And also to see if the problem you're trying to solve has not already been solved 1,000 times by other companies, and quite possibly has already been solved by Google or Amazon or somebody huge that you're never going to be able to compete with. And it's emotional intelligence that takes us from being technical founders and saying, I'm going to do this because I can. And it takes us to a place where we actually say, hang on, should I do this? Should I actually have a love? Should I create this product or this service? It's emotional intelligence that gets us to that place where we actually question whether we should be doing it, not just going deeply into solving this problem because we technically can and our ego thinks that we can do it better than the other people have. And I came from an interesting space. When I joined VentureBeat, I helped them to build their research arm. It was called VB Insight. We researched the entire marketing technology space. And when I started researching marketing technology, there was maybe 900 products that mattered in marketing technology. 9 products that had funding, that were employing staff, that were solving actual product. 5 years later, when I got bored of doing marketing technology reporting and analysis, there were over 10,000 companies in my database within just 5 years. There are over 760 mobile analytics products out there, all coexisting with each other. At some point, if you come up with an idea for a mobile analytics product, you've got to say, do I really want to be number 761 and compete with all of those other people, or should I try and solve another problem? And guess what? It's emotional intelligence that's just going ahead and doing it because we can, and asking ourselves whether we should. What else does emotional intelligence do for us? Well, let's be super fine about what emotional intelligence is. First thing it's about self-awareness. Now, one of the problems with mental health in the tech industry, and one of the reasons that founders and startup workers, especially founders, but everybody in the business, are having such a harder time of dealing with mental health issues than regular citizens do, is because we sometimes lack the self-awareness, and we have a problem that's called self-prescription. If you're a brilliant technical person, you've identified a problem that needs solving, you've decided that you can code and develop and launch an app or a website or some kind of product or service that's going to solve that problem. But you're a technical person. However, you're the person that came up with the idea. So what do? Well, your ego gets in the way and you decide to make yourself the CEO of the business. And among all of the different pressure points that founders have to deal with, like taking somebody else's money, hiring and firing people for the first time, dealing with all of the issues and problems of those staff because they now look to you, they look up to you, and you're now responsible for their lives. You're responsible for the food on their plates, for the roofs over their heads. All of these pressure points, but then the extra pressure point of the fact that you're not CEO material. You're a technical person. You should have made yourself the CTO, and you should have hired in somebody who knows what to do as a CEO. Because being a CEO is an entirely different brain set, entirely different set of skills to being a CTO. So it's super important that you have this self-awareness and that you put yourself in the right position in your own company, even if you're the person who came up with the initial idea. So self-awareness is a really important emotional intelligence skill. It means getting a very clear picture of your strengths and your weaknesses, and leaders understand their own capabilities. They're able to leverage their strengths at the same time, improve their weaknesses, but also put the right people in to fill those gaps. And self-regulation is very important as well. Like, you have to be able to regulate yourself effectively. You've got to be able to control emotions. You have to be able to control impulses. Great leaders don't make rash decisions. They don't verbally attack other people. They don't compromise their values. They hold themselves accountable. They remain calm under pressure. So that's a really important thing. Self-regulation is an incredibly important indicator of somebody's emotional intelligence. You know, if every time something goes wrong, you fly off the handle, if every time somebody on your team maybe doesn't do as good a job as you expected them to do, or maybe they don't exhibit the right behavior, if you pull them up in front of everybody else, in front of the team, and get angry at them so that everybody is now embarrassed and everybody is feeling bad, that's a real lack of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to control those emotions. Of course, you know, empathy, super important. Having empathy is incredibly crucial to your organization. It's incredibly important to the management of that organization. Good leaders take a moment to understand every member of their team. Good leaders understand body language and can see when people are not feeling good, when they're upset, when they're under stress. You need to be able to identify when your people are heading towards burnout, because if you don't, you're going to have a real issue. And let's be clear, if your team burns out, if your team burns out and you didn't recognize they're on their way to burning out, and you lose your team because they burn out, who's going to build your product? Who's going to sell your product? Who's going to get revenue in for you? Who's going to help you make a profit? You know, if you burn out, where does the VC get their return from if you've taken VC money? Like, you have to absolutely understand body language and understand physical cues as well as verbal cues. And that is a really strong indicator of emotional intelligence. In addition to that, of course, social skills, you know, being able to get on with people. But, you know, I know I'm going to leave some of the questions to the end, but one of the things that was asked in the chat was, you know, can there be too much or rather too high in EQ? Simply put, the answer is yes. You know, you can be so empathetic that actually you don't want to correct the behavior of anybody on your team, because, you know, even though with a very EQ will do an incredibly good job of, you know, explaining to that person the behavior wasn't right in that particular situation, at the same time, you know how hurtful it's going to be to that person to hear that. Or if you have to fire somebody, you know how it's going to terribly negatively affect them. And so, yeah, there does have to be a balance, because if you're such an empathetic manager that you can't actually ever fire anybody or correct anybody's behavior, then that's going to cause you a problem. But guess what? Even though there is research that shows that you can have too high an EQ, the research is mildly flawed, because having a high EQ would help you to self-awarely recognize that you have too high empathy, and you can correct that and regulate it yourself. So, you know, the research that shows that having a really high IQ bad is out there, and you can read about that all day. But actually, if your EQ is so high that you are that self-aware that you would realize that you have to have slightly lower empathy, you can balance it out for yourself. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of, you know, whether you can have such a high EQ that it causes a problem, you'll automatically balance it because of your high EQ. Of course, the one other thing that people with high EQ exhibit is incredible levels of motivation, not just for themselves, but for everybody they work around. And having that ability to motivate people, but also having that ability to understand when you're pushing people too hard, is an incredible skill, and it's something that somebody with high EQ is able to do. That means you're going to have a highly performant team, but you're not going to let them burn out, and you're not going to let them work too hard. You're going to make sure that they have everything around them that supports both their work life and their actual life. You're going to be able to, you know, provide them with a really good environment where they can perform, but at the same time, you know, not absolutely burn themselves out to death. And ultimately, if you have a very high EQ, you're going to make more revenue, you're going to make better products, you're going to make fewer mistakes as a company. You're going to be able to motivate your team. You're going to be able to show them what a shared goal looks like and actually get them to buy into the shared goal. You're going to be able to make more profit. You're going to be able to ship on time. You're going to be able to do all these things, and without having to work everybody to the bone, which is the problem that we have with the Silicon Valley model of doing business. So ultimately, I can sell emotional intelligence to any city, to any founder, to any startup worker by just explaining these things that I've explained to you in the last 15 minutes. And if you want to improve your emotional intelligence, it is possible to learn. Many gold standard studies, many articles out there that show that emotional intelligence is completely teachable. And as with everything else in life, there are lots of really good processes, practices, exercises that you can do to learn emotional intelligence. We don't have time to go through them all right now, but it comes with practice. Like everything else in life, it comes with practice. So go out there, read up on emotional intelligence, read on some of the exercises, practices, things that you can do, and then repeatedly do them. Repeatedly do them. Like everything else in life, it's just about learning. You didn't drive a car perfectly the first time you got into one. Don't expect to do that with this. So repeatedly do it, get better at it, because it will ultimately make you more money, get you better products and services to sell. You'll have a much more balanced life, and so will everybody that works under you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Right on time.
No problem.
Why am I muted? Who muted me?
I don't know.
Yes, there was a question from our attendees in the forum, which was, please provide an example or describe as precise as possible how you personally made a multi-million deals applying your insights on emotional intelligence. Maybe they're not multi-million, but examples of how emotional intelligence helped you get a deal.
Actually, yeah, I can explain that really easily. And yes, I have done multi-million-dollar deals. You know, before being a journalist, before being an analyst, I ran a number of software houses. For those of you not old enough, software houses is what we used to call startups. And I had a couple of exits. So, you know, we did pretty well, actually. And so we were doing multi-million-dollar deals. In fact, one of my startups actually had over 80% of the time's top 1,000 as clients. And, you know, it's really easy. If you teach sales, and I've taught over 3,000 salespeople how to sell, you realize that sales is a repeatable process. It's actually broken down into 3 completely repeatable stages. It doesn't matter how long the sales cycle is, doesn't matter how big the deal is. You probe, which is you ask the customer questions so you can find out what they need. You prove, which is that you show that you are the right people to provide them with the right product, and then you close the deal. You ask them for the order. Sometimes you'll do that as a consultative sale in a B2B environment. Sometimes you'll do that with a funnel or a website. But either way, it's probe, prove, close. That's how to sell things. However, if you want to do multi-million-dollar deals, or if you want to do any deals of any considerable size, you have to have emotional intelligence. You can't just walk through the door like an old dodgy secondhand card salesperson and knock the customer over the head until you say to them, hey, do you want to sign with the blue pen or the red pen? You know, that's terrible stuff. That's really awful. You have to be consultative in nature. You have to make sure that they realize that you're part of their team. And you also need to realize that within any big, complex sales environment, such as a multi-million-dollar deal, there are multiple players. There are people that are controlling the money. There are people that are controlling the technical side of things. There's people that are advocates for you. There are users within that organization that need to use your product. And if you don't have emotional intelligence, you're not going to understand all of the different you know, things that those people need in their lives, and therefore how to provide everybody with what's right for them and balance it all out so that the entire organization gets what they want. So emotional intelligence is absolutely crucial to any kind of large deal, complex deal, or you know, anything that requires any kind of consultative approach on your part. If you don't have it, and if you just walk in there and try and do a hard sell, you're going to succeed almost none of the time.
Thank you, Stuart. We have a follow-up question from Shad, following to the question of too much emotional intelligence. Knowing that emotional intelligence can be directly correlated with agreeableness, other personality traits, and even gender, is it a cognitive function or a bottom-up function? Given that high emotional intelligence personality traits tend to be poor leaders, but better employees, should we be optimizing the EQ or just straight empathy?
So as I said before, there is research that came out. The latest I read was from 2019, which seems like a decade ago now. And there is research that shows that high EQ does come with a dark side, and that it may not be a good idea to have leaders with high EQ. However, as I also said, that, in my opinion, is flawed research. Because if you have such a high EQ that you are so self-aware that you realize that you are too empathetic in order to be a good leader, you will balance out your empathy. And you will make sure that even though you're empathetic, you still remain objective. High EQ and high intelligence quotient, high IQ, don't necessarily go hand in hand. However, we have seen that in terms of the bell curve of people with high EQ and high IQ, it's actually quite a broad median, which means that there aren't many outliers. And as a result of that, people with high EQ do generally tend to have reasonably high intelligence quotient also. And someone with high IQ and high EQ together, that's a really, it certainly allows for somebody to balance out things like their empathy levels in order to be more of an effective leader. So, emotional quotient, the ability to manage, assess, identify, control your emotions and the emotions of others. And that is something that you need as a leader and a team player. Of course, IQ is the ability to apply information, logical reasoning, spatial thinking, understand things at a very high level. The combination of those two things, taking somebody that's a capable individual or seen as highly gifted, and a high emotional quotient, is, in my opinion, the hallmarks of an incredible leader. There have been incredible leaders, of course, that have high IQ and high EQ, but they chose not to exhibit their high EQ because they wanted to make sure that they still exhibited leadership traits. I have to say that, somebody with, somebody like Steve Jobs, for example, it's highly documented that Steve Jobs was a complete asshole when it came to how he, treated people within his business. It does not mean he didn't have a high EQ. He did. He just chose to regulate it, and he chose how to behave in order to still be the leader that he wanted to be. So I think the research on high EQs and those people not being able to be leaders is massively flawed.
Thank you so much, Stuart, and thank you, Shad, for your questions. We have a lot of questions regarding emotional intelligence culture in the team. We will now be opening the floor to everyone. But before we jump into that, there was one very interesting question. Yes, Olha, yes?
Yeah, I really appreciate if you can give me like 2 minutes, because I have some ideas, just practical, the one that I wanted to share, especially after amazing speech by Stuart. It's about, like he described mostly how to be a leader and how to leader mostly use the emotional intelligence during the deals, during the work. And I would like maybe just to add some practical ideas how you personally, like a part of the team, can work and how you can develop your emotional intelligence. And maybe I saw lots of questions about the practices inside. So I would like to share a few of them that we actually used. So as Stuart said, it was like about the realization of your feeling, how to realize that this feeling you have. And just the short practice that there is like a journal, you can just have a book, putting your emotion just to define what do you feel, and just put them in columns. Is there feeling from your perspective giving you some advices like achievements and maybe some good vibration from all of you doing, and you just put the second a column just defining the bad emotions, and then you just realized which of them can give you benefits and which of them no. Also, like he told a lot about the empathy, that is really important issue, how to get this empathy, how important to be empathy for other people. And there is practices when you have these small talks and you just try to think from other side how people will react, because actually everything we do for the opposite reaction, not just to provide your idea or just, you know, to get your vision, but actually what you will get back from the person. So it is really next practices. It sounds so simple and easy, but the thing that you need to practice. And
Thank you so much for your practical advice, Ola. I would like to throw in one interesting question that we got from the type forum. Are there any cultural differences in developing emotional intelligence? If yes, citizens of which countries are more emotionally intelligent, and what helps them be more aware of their emotions? Guys, what do you think? You worked with internationally with so many people from different countries. Have you encountered any differences in the emotional intelligence levels? This is a question to Stuart and Ola, and then anyone from the audience can also share your experience. Okay, anyone wants to start? Ola, Stuart, any differences in cultural differences in emotional intelligence level of people of different countries?
Yeah, absolutely. The cultural differences that come about are interesting, and they are many and varied. Different cultures. So let's be blunt and let's be frank. There are many cultures that do not treat the people with different sexual orientations equally. We even have some pretty awful and terrible things that we do to boys versus girls when they're growing up in Western cultures. Even something as simple as telling a boy to man up, suck it up, and just, you know, be a man is actually incredibly destructive. If we look at adult suicide rates, they are over 70% men, and that's because men are not taught how to be you know, empathetic. They're not taught about how to be vulnerable. They're told to man up, and so we have a real problem. And you know, that's exhibited in the tech industry too. Most of the suicides, even adjusted for the amount of male versus female founders, are male. So, you know, when we look at other countries that actively put women down and do not treat women and men equally, that don't in terms of equal, of course, we're talking about making sure that everybody has equal opportunity, and then you can use your capabilities to you know, adjust your life accordingly. But we need to make sure that we start everybody from the same line, and we are not doing that. And so as a result, we stunt the growth of emotional intelligence in entire swathes of people across the whole world based upon cultural and religious differences. So yeah, we do have a serious issue in how we raise boys versus girls, or you know, gender non-specific people who identify how they want to. Massive issue, and it does actually have neurological changes. You know, if we look at just even, say, for example, I don't know if you know this, but before Victorian times, boys wore pink, not girls. You know, even the things that we do in terms of gender typing products and using different colorways for, you know, men versus women actually cause neurological changes in our brain, and as a result, they affect the way that our intelligence quotient and emotional quotient develop. So we do need to do a better job worldwide of giving people the opportunity to start from an equal line and have the same opportunities as each other. I'm not saying that everyone is going to then become the same person or end up at the same result. That's not how it works. You are still going to have to use your intelligence, both emotional and actual, and make choices and use every capability and work with people that are good versus people that are bad, etc., etc. And you will all end up in different places. But if we provide an environment where we all have the same starting line, at least then we have the ability to develop our emotional intelligence and our actual intelligence under our own capability, not because of external forces.
Thank you, Stuart. Olha, would you like to share anything on the question? Is there any difference, cultural differences in emotional intelligence?
I think Stuart really opened the question. Maybe we have some other more practical or something else.
Sure, we can jump to the topic that's been asked quite a bit, but it's a new topic, so we can start it now. This is emotional intelligence in teams. How do you build a culture of emotional intelligence on your team? How to work differently with different people, how to find an approach to each of the teammates, how to teach emotional intelligence to your teams. We can open up this topic. Who would like to start? Olha, you're
Yeah,
unmuted.
maybe I,
You wanna
because
start?
I have
Sure.
good internet right now.
Let's use it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, really sorry for such thing, because I'm really sorry. So about the emotional intelligence, the main idea I'm trying to push all the talk today, that is something we really need to develop, something we need to pay attention, that these issues need to be developed. In your team, as I started at the beginning, you need to get your team to know better. You need to motivate you. You need to realize that this issue needs to be discussed in the beginning. As about the practical ideas, you need to work with the feelings. You need to do everything, just your team is not burned out. About the intelligence that can be discovered or just to be developed, it first needs to be work on every level. So every person needs to work personal on there, and then it will like a team. Especially the practice one more I would like to tell about the how to recognize your emotion. So basically you can just have a look on your emotion for emotion, and you need to start to work for personal yourself. One more tip, one more practical thing, you just need to put all your emotion you feel through the day, and you just need to put the one that really bring you some achievements, and just realize what the feeling means for you, what they bring to you, and how often do you feel them during the day. So that's like how you manage, or how just you coordinate what's inside your head, and how to upgrade yourself. So this is the one tip I will give for that till my internet is on.
Thank you, Stuart. Anything on emotional intelligence for teams?
Yeah, actually, I did notice a sort of related question in the chat. I'm scrolling a little bit to find. So yeah, there was also, could you share some emotional tricks, advice for communication with colleagues in chats, Slack, Skype, Telegram, when you can't see them texting? It was the very first piece of research I did back in the old days, approximately 134 years ago. And basically what I did was I researched textual communications and whether text-only communications led to people getting the wrong context, or as we say in the United Kingdom, the wrong end of the stick. And it turns out that almost exactly 50% of the time when you use text only, people get the wrong context. Now, that research has been updated since, because we, of course, have seen the rise of the GIF and the emoji. And yeah, I said GIF. I will never use the J word. There is no way that the CompuLink graphical information format can ever be pronounced with a J, because it's not graphical, it's graphical. But we use GIFs, we use emojis, and that helps us to put
How
context.
can I dislike this?
Right, you cannot do that. So we now have the ability to increase the amount of time that textual communications actually are correct in context by using emojis, GIFs, etc. But still, it's really hard. So it is super hard, but every single platform that you mentioned there, Slack, Skype, Telegram, all have the capability for you to actually see them too. You don't have to just use text. You can actually see each other. Just do a video call and interact with people there. So I would always on the side of talking to people. I know that right now we're all getting like Zoom fatigue because of the pandemic that seems to have lasted 5 years already. But take the time to work face to face with people as possible, and that's how you help to improve, emotional performance. And then, like I say, do some research. There's a lot of really practical exercises you can do out there that will improve emotional intelligence. do them with your team, work them through, do them with yourself first, practice them, get better, and then do them with your team. And but try and avoid just text-only stuff for anything that requires something more than just a process or ticking off a task.
Thank you so much, Stuart. On the rights of a moderator, I will give myself a word because the topic of team communication is something that I'm personally very interested in and keen on. So what showed in my experience that works best for emotional intelligence in the team is actually talking things out and teaching people to, realize their emotions and communicate their emotions through actually doing that. In my experience, it shows that teams are much happier working together if they have a deeper level of trust and they can actually feel that they are in a safe space to communicate their emotions, to communicate their concerns. They feel safe to express criticism and not feel that they're offending anyone in any way. So in order to build that trust, think about team building activities, but not those as in let's go and play some board game and we'll have fun and we'll suddenly become friends, or we'll eat pizza and watch a movie. That's not really the team building that is needed in teams. It's the practice of communicating with each other. It can be through also games, but business games where you can express yourself as a person of who you really are, where you can express your traits that are your strengths or weaknesses, where you can actually get to know people better, those people that you're working with. And through getting to know each other better, you build a deeper level of trust. And as you have a deeper level of trust, you feel more safe to communicate those emotions. So that's something that I would suggest for teams. I bet we have a lot of people here who practice different things on their teams. Would anyone would like to share here? You can unmute yourself and just share. I see Raman. Yes,
yeah.
Awesome.
Hello. So thank you for the speeches. It was very insightful. So I work in an IT company and we're in an agile environment. So one of the things that really benefits agile teams, we have one-on-one sessions. It's a very effective tool used by Scrum Masters usually, where they have private conversations one-on-one that they stay in that specific conversation where the Scrum Master interviews the person, like generally talks, it's not even an interview. They talk to each other and they share how are they feeling, are they having a hard time, are they feeling that something is wrong or they're not understood or they have maybe miscommunication in the team. It's a safe environment where everybody shares their struggles, maybe their successes, and maybe where they would want to grow as a professional or as general as a human being. So this is one of, as far as I could tell, one of the most effective tools you can adapt if you're not in the IT industry. If you're in the IT industry and you don't use it, then that's something you should definitely change, because this is what in our teams, it helps grow the team. It helps trust each other more. And it helps us be open about issues. So we don't avoid arguments because arguments have to be constructive. And if we trust each other there, then we are open to those arguments and have a constructive conversation about them. So if you have never read about it, one-on-one meetings, I do recommend them a lot.
Thank you so much, Raman. Anyone else wants to add anything? Please unmute. Anyone? All right. Igor Malchenko, I know you have some tips. Maybe you want to share? Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to share something? Because I know you're building a culture in the team.
Well, yeah, I'm struggling, and I even asked you a question right there.
Yeah, we can discuss the question, or you can share some tips that you're using.
No, not really. Like all the Scrum processes are pretty fine when you're working with individuals that are already pretty emotionally intelligent. Otherwise, it's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, Igor. And it's a really good question as well. So having run lots of different teams over the years, I tell you that, you know, even if you have incredible emotional intelligence, you still need to lead. And the way that I always used to look at whether somebody was right for my business or not was by determining whether they can't or whether they won't. If somebody can't do something that you need them to do, well, you can teach them. It's your job to teach them, actually. If they're failing at something that you hired them because they have the right skills, but you've given them a task and they can't do that task, it's your job to teach them because you failed if they fail, right? Because you need to give them tools. So if somebody can't do something, you need to teach them how to do it. If after spending some time teaching them how to do it, they still can't, then you need to consider that they're maybe not the right person for your business. Doesn't make them a person who's not the right fit for your business. However, you won't do something, I'm afraid they shouldn't be within your organization. If somebody is flatly refusing, they have the right skills, it's the right task for them, it's the right fit, it's the right role, but they won't do it, they're not right for you, and you need to replace them as soon as is humanly possible. So that applies to physical skills, it applies to processes, it applies to wider job roles, and it also applies to emotional intelligence. If somebody will not take on what you're saying about and improve their emotional intelligence when you need them to, it's a won't, and therefore they're not part of your team. If they can't, you can teach them. If after teaching they still can't, then maybe they're not right for your team too. So to take it that way, look at the difference between can't and won't and deal with it accordingly.
Thank you, Stuart. I want to read through Igor's question and also give some insights on it. How long should I wait before firing a toxic team member with zero empathy that is trying to improve his emotional intelligence skills? Are there people that can't be fixed? My opinion is, I don't know if there are people that can't be fixed. Maybe there are, but the time that you should wait before firing them is the time that is agreed with them after discussing with them that they're being toxic. I believe that honesty and openness is very important in teams. So if you have someone on your team who is being a toxic team member, talk to them about that with examples of what in their behavior is being toxic and in what way to the team, and agree with them on the time that they're taking to improve their skills. For example, okay, let's take 2 weeks for you to not be this, to not get, I don't know, to not offend people, to not ruin the mood of people who are motivated to work. And we will see in 2 weeks, we'll get back to this one-on-one and discuss how it went. If it's not working, then team comes first. And I would suggest just like it's all discussable. If you agreed, okay, after 2 weeks, if it's not working, we're saying bye. Then you're just saying bye after 2 weeks or a month or 1 week. It's up to you.
And if I could add to that, there is a very big difference between somebody's core and their behavior. You should never question somebody's core. I'm going to live here and say that you've hired good people for your business. You wouldn't have hired the assholes. You've probably got, hopefully, and if you haven't got this, add it to your list of rules in terms of people you hire. I have a no dick rule. Like, if you're a dick, you don't get into the company in the first place. So people that are in your company are probably good people. They're good at their core, but sometimes they exhibit bad behavior. There's a very big difference between core and behavior. So when you go to have that conversation with your team member, you can remind them of that. Say, look, you're a great person. That's the reason we hired you. In this particular case, your behavior was not what we expected. And so let's just work on that and we can improve it. You're not a person, you are helping them solve a behavior issue. That's much, much more constructive work going about it. And that, by the way, is very high incidence in terms of dealing with it.
That is a great point, Stuart. Thank you for the nonviolent communication. If someone is in Ukrainian, nonviolent communication is a way of expressing your maybe criticism to other people in not attacking them, but expressing your emotions about how you feel about their concrete actions. So you're not saying you're a toxic person, we hate you, but you're saying these concrete actions caused our team members to feel bad Let's discuss why. Maybe your discussion, your one-on-one, will go into, it will uncover some conflicts in the team. Maybe this person is being toxic because they're offended by someone else on the team, and then you can continue working with that. But if you're saying that they have zero empathy and nothing is working, then, well, it's up to you. There are questions about emotional intelligence and motivating your boss to learn emotional intelligence, that it's easier to build it is as teammates who are equals on the same level, but how do you get this message through to someone who's your boss? Any thoughts on that?
I absolutely have some thoughts on that. That was the basis of my entire speech today. It depends on what your boss is motivated by. If your boss is motivated by making as much revenue and profit as possible, then explain everything that I explained today, which is how emotional intelligence and how all different parts of emotional intelligence actually will lead to your revenues being higher, your profits being higher, your work being more accurate, people being more motivated, and will lead to more burnout, and they'll cause a massive problem. High emotional leaders actually results in low turnover of staff, which increases continuity, reduces cost of hiring, and makes sure that you're going to produce better results. So if your boss is motivated by money, have that conversation with them. If your boss is motivated by technical brilliance, well, it's a pretty similar conversation, frankly, because again, having high emotional intelligence is going to improve the work. It's going to be more accurate. It's, people are not going to burn out, all the same results. So basically use those arguments. You need to just take emotional intelligence, which is a soft skill, tie it to the bottom line in some way, shape or form, but customize the message based upon what your boss actually deems important, and do that by just asking them questions about what they think is important.
Thank you, Stuart. We have a technical thing that Olha has to leave in 2 minutes. I would like, and we're actually out of our 20 minutes right now. So I would suggest one last question to the speakers and to everyone. What would be the materials you would like to suggest for people to read through, watch through, listen through to learn more about emotional intelligence? Olha, you can start and leave us.
First of all, thank you for being with us, and thank you for invitation. All my materials I will send maybe online, and maybe we can spread it further. I would recommend few books to read. Just as I said, the main idea of my speech is develop yourself, your emotional intelligence, then to work in the team, and then to work team and a leader. So all information in that direction I will send, and thank you for having me. I hope my part of the speech was at least useful, and I hope that you will, all of the attendees will try at least one positive and practical. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olha, for your practical approach.
Thank you.
Virtual claps.
Thanks.
And good luck with your next call.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so now I have a question. Could we stay like 5 more minutes and finish with our discussions, or would anyone want to go? Okay, 5 more minutes. I'm just fine.
I unfortunately also.
Oh, you have to go. All right, then we.
But I would like
to recommend us.
I just want to. Olya is going to send you all sorts of wonderful resources. I'm absolutely certain of it. But there is one book that's always stuck in my head, and it's awesome, and it has practical examples about how to increase your emotional intelligence. It's called Go Suck a Lemon, and it's by Michael Cornwall. Check out that book. It's called Go Suck a Lemon. It's by Michael Cornwall. I'll put it in the chat. It's an awesome book. I really recommend it to everybody.
Oh, I'm speaking without being muted. Thank you, Stuart, very much for the suggestion and for your speech. We will let you go. Guys, a virtual claps.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. I mean, thank you so much to Diana for putting this on, for hosting, to everybody that's been involved. Really, really appreciate it. I miss Kyiv dearly. I will come over soon. I'll come and see everybody. So, we'll make that happen. It's going to happen real soon. But for the time. Thanks everyone. People meet to me. It's been wonderful, and I really appreciate all your questions. They've been fantastic. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Stuart.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Now, I would like to ask participants, do you guys want to stay and discuss more questions, or do you want to leave? You can unmute and say, like, if you need to go, that's fine. But if we want to have like another maybe 10-minute discussion, we can do that. Anyone wants to speak? Hello?
Can I speak? There was like a follow-up question in the chat.
Sure.
I was thinking, could I write it or should I speak about it? So there's a question.
If you don't mind, I will put 10 minutes more. Those who have to leave, you can leave. But others, if you want to stay and talk more, we can stay more. 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's 10 minutes will be okay.
Yep. Awesome. Rama?
Yes. So the question was, is it possible to create the safe environment not in one-on-one, but among several team members? It's not one versus one, it's one-on-one. So like, it's not a fight. So on a general level, I would say that like when you form any team, there's usually a couple of team members, like it's 1, 2, 3, 5 people at most. So you're kind of the people that set the tone in the team. You set the culture of communication within the team. And that is the moment where you have to set the right tone for it. So the best strategy is honesty, transparency, and that's what you want to keep in the team. So everybody knows who's doing what, how they're feeling about the project, how they're feeling about each other. And if you're honest with the team is honest with you, and you have a very good environment to grow and to do something great together. So that's the early stages. If we're talking like long term, like if you have a team that's constantly growing, like 10, 15, 20 people, you should have a person that kind of onboards them on the team and explains to them, hey, this is our team, this is who we are, this is how we communicate, this is how we share ideas. If you feel that you want to share something with us, here's when you do it, how you do it, because for example in agile environments, agile teams, we have the retrospective meeting, so the retro is short, where we, after a sprint of, for example, 2 weeks of development, we say what was good, what needs to be improved, and everybody is free to speak whatever they feel like. So what was good, what was bad, and what could be improved, or what we could do to improve what was bad. And that is the moment where everybody has to be honest, where everybody shares their concerns, their issues within that work cycle of 2 or 3 weeks, depending how long it was. And yeah, so that's one of the ways you can also improve your communication and emotional intelligence within the team.
Thank you, Raman. Guys, does anyone else want to share how you develop your own emotional intelligence skills, or how you teach it in your team? If not,
I just can say that like only last year I realized that emotional intelligence is really important skill, and somehow I already developed it. Yeah, I have a lot of like questions to myself, because I will tell later. But actually, some of this emotional intelligence skills was already like my burn skill. Yeah, I'm really talkative person, and I'm like open to talk with everyone. But it also was a good question from Shad, because at some point when I like organized my first business and I had PR agency, I was too maybe empathy, had too much empathy. I tried to to build like a family team or something like that, but it doesn't work to all of my team members, and I learned a lot of it. And it's good that sometimes you can already have some skills, but it's also important to always to coach yourself to find new ways how you need to communicate with different level of peoples also. And like, for example, I will completely like talk with people from World Economic Forum totally different than I talked with like global shapers, for example. Yeah, it's like a similar and close area, but a lot of questions here, how to act with this. So that's all that I wanted to add.
Thank you. I would like to share what I do to grow my emotional intelligence skills. First, it's a bunch of books. Something emotional intelligence is something that only extroverts have, and introverts can never like develop it. But it's not true. It's a skill as anything else. And so I think Stuart mentioned body language and understanding body language of people. I was lucky that my dad gave me a book on body language when I was 14, and that's when my journey started. So there is a couple of amazing authors. They're actually a couple, Alan and Barbara Pease. And so they have an amazing book called Understand Body Language. I'm going to send it in the chat now. I'm also going to send it to we're going to send it in a newsletter afterwards with all the materials, but actually helps understand, like, if a person is moving their knee in this direction, it probably means that they're feeling something. But again, it's important to not just like program in your head any of such books on emotional intelligence, because then you're not seeing the context. Like if people tell you that when the person is sitting like this, they're closed. But in reality, if you're talking on the street and it's super cold, they will be standing like this, even if they're not closed and they want to be super open with you, they're just cold. The context is important. And then regarding teams, my favorite author is Patrick Lencioni or Lencioni. I think that's an Italian last name. And my favorite book that I say every time is a must read is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's an amazing book of how to build trust in your team and how to fit the right people and build the communication and the trust in the team so that the team works effectively towards one goal. Amazing book, recommended, like read it tomorrow. Let's have a book club and discuss it. Best thing ever. Then other thing that helped me in building my emotional intelligence is therapy, working with a therapist, psychologist, whatever you call it. Honestly, this is one of the best tools that you can use to actually understand how to work with your emotions, how to understand your emotions. And then it helps you to work with yourself and then to continue working with others. And meditation, I highly recommend to everyone. That helps very much to be aware, self-aware, and conscious. I know that a lot of people here practice meditation, some of those that I know. So that's really cool. Alexander Kozlov is recommending us things. Would you like to speak up, Alexander Kozlov?
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with you that you should read a lot, but you should practice as well, because the skill is quite difficult to retain if you're not practicing it. I guess my journey with this skill started back when I was watching a TV show called Lie to Me. Yeah, that was great. And after that, I was like learning all that stuff, practicing. That was quite useful right now, but not then. And another cool book that I would recommend is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a book with a bunch of like things that you can practice like right away. You should not be reading about like 200 pages about what emotional intelligence is. You just can take the first one from, let's say, self-awareness and just start it, such as table or whatever. It's really easy to start, really easy to read. And yeah, it's the best way to improve it if you want to do this with the book without any course or whatever. Yeah, so, and those two that I wrote, like Crucial Accountability and Crucial Conversations, those are two that I just started, and they're just great. They just all about those hard conversations about transparency and having people taking each other accountable. That's one of the greatest things that you can do in the beginning of your team. So yeah, that's basically it. Maybe I can remember something else.
Thank you. And Jake, you recommended a book. Would you like to tell us more about it? Courage to be Disliked.
That's like a complete opposite of. Has anyone read that book yet? By the way, Courage to be Disliked, because it's like more of a philosophical approach to kind of like understanding what's going on. I would encourage for you to read it from the standpoint of understanding that me just recall what's a good way to summarize that book. I think a really good way to put that is that, when we talk about how we work with different people and understanding that, that, because at least the vibe that I'm getting, and I'm putting it in a very simplified manner. Like when you're working with different people, teamwork is obviously important and stuff like that. But I think for you to bring forward what it is that you really want to do. And I think you mentioned about, Diana, I think you mentioned about like meditation as well. The real key thing here is to be self-acceptance. I think someone mentioned that. Power or control to control someone, you can influence someone else's emotions maybe, but like understanding that even if you are not able to, if you get like a negative response, for example, and understand that that's not your fault, but it doesn't mean you go around being a dick, if that makes sense. So it's really just accepting yourself, so that understanding who you are, accepting where you are right now, and developing yourself further, and being able to contribute to the community because you understand who you really are. I think that's kind of what's been really interesting from a more philosophical standpoint. I'm kind of dumbing down the book a lot. It's been a while since I've brought it up, but I know that it left a lasting impression on me. And I think it's helped the way that I'm running my company right now as well. So you guys should just check it out. I think it's kind of like an antithesis of what's being shared here, more grounded in philosophy. And it will be interesting to hear what you guys think about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're actually out of our 10 minutes now, so we can wrap up. You've been an amazing audience. You're great guys, and thank you for your questions and your comments. We noted all the books that you recommended and the follow-up email with the recommendations from speakers. That's it. We can all turn on our cameras and like do applause to ourselves. You want to do that? Hey, people join. Yay. Awesome. Thank you guys. This is great. We will see you in the next Global Insights in a month about some other awesome topic. That's it. Good night or good day to those who are in a different time zone. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.